Hello people, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ola Simon Peter and I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. In my previous video, we looked at how to approach SIP's constructed response examination questions. If you missed this session, you can just check in my profile so that you can be able to learn how to answer CRR exam questions. So we are going to start our journey through with the level 6 M2. Like I told you, we shall be learning together, we shall be discussing together step by step, especially for those who have not yet written level 6 M2. Level 6 M2 is Global Commercial Strategy. It's a paper that has proved to be a challenge for many students, but we shall discuss it together and we shall learn together, and of course we shall excel together. Now, for you to be able to pass this module very well, you need to understand the module and open up your mind so that your brain can be able to absorb and be able to pick information from around your environment. And also come up with good examples. Now, many people think level 6 M2 is very challenging. Leave that mindset alone. Open up your mind and be ready to learn. For example, I'll give you a trick. For each module you're going to do, open up and first digest. What is this module? What are the expectations of this module? What does the examiner want me to learn? And how can I apply it in my working environment or in my personal business? Okay? So when we talk about global commercial strategy, what are we talking about? Or what should you be able to think about for you to be able to appreciate it in detail? Now, before even you read the module, these are the things you can consider. Number one, when we talk about global commercial strategy, we are operating in a global environment. Our business operates beyond our borders, our country's borders, or beyond where we live. There are many competitors in the global market, and therefore we need to come up with a strategy to have a competitive edge amongst our competitors. Number three, there are many risks and opportunities in the global environment. And number four, then commercial is basically business transaction. Now, once we have understood what this module is about, then it will help us to be at a better position to come up with points, be able to brainstorm, be able to apply, and also come up with examples that we can actually use in our exam once we don't have this module. So we shall have this session together. It is going to be as practical as possible. It will be a discussion, and feel free to write in the comments if there is something that you want me to explain further, then we can be able to learn. Remember, we are in this journey, we're in this journey together. Good. So this chapter, we shall start with chapter 1, which is about global strategic decisions. Now in chapter 1, we are going to look at how to identify strategic decisions and how we can be able to come up with these strategic decisions. Now, the word strategy may sound so complicated, but so many organizations use strategies. Even you as an individual, you might have actually come up with some strategies in order to achieve your objectives. Now, a strategy can be anything that a business can use to increase its competitive advantage. It can include how it shall use its resources, how it shall use its finances or human resource, and its equipment, so as to have a competitive edge in the environment it's operating. So by the end of this chapter, we shall be able to look at examples of decisions that you can make in your organization and learn how it can be a strategic decision. We shall also look at the characteristics of a strategy a good strategy, and also we shall also discuss the long-term impacts of our strategy to our organization. So let's proceed. Strategic management process. Of course, now when we look at strategy, we cannot just wake up from the bed and just come up with a strategic decision. No, there are steps we need to follow in order to come up with a good strategy, and also how to maintain them. Okay, I have a brief diagram trying to show the process of how we can come up with a strategic decision and how we can manage these strategies. So the first one could be, you should ask yourself, where do you want to go? Okay. Then the next one, where are you now? So you want to go to point B, but where are you now? And what do you have in order to help you to go to point B? That is the second step. The third step, decide on how to get there. So if you're at a certain point before B, what are you going to use to make sure you go to point B? Communicate the plan. Put the plan into action, and also check and improve where necessary. So these are the steps we follow to come up with a good strategic decision. So let's discuss them in detail and see. Let's see number one. Number one, remember we had said know where you want to go. Okay. Now, first identify the organization's direction. Where does the organization want to go, and where does it want to be in the next maybe 10 years? Okay. Now, for you to answer this question properly, you will need to look into your organization's vision, mission, and objectives. This will help you to know what strategies we can come up with, and it will help you know where the organization is actually headed. Okay. Now, the vision. What is the vision? Where do we want to be in the future? That is what the vision communicates. Where does the organization want to be in the future? How about the mission? The mission is, why do you exist? Why do you operate? What values do you add to the community or to the business or to other people or to your stakeholders? Then the objectives. What exactly do we want to achieve? Okay. Now we are going to consider some practical examples on how we can put all this into application. So once we have identified where we need to go or where we need to be, we now need to first find out what is our current situation. Let's make it more practical and imagine a company that provides procurement, sourcing and supply chain and logistics services to organization. I would look at an example of, let's say, PrimeLink. PrimeLink, procurement and logistics service provider. That is now the name of the company, for example. So what could be the vision to become a leading procurement and logistics solution provider in Africa? So PrimeLink is our company, and that is its vision. And the mission, to provide reliable, cost-effective, and innovative procurement and logistics solutions that help organizations achieve better value and improve supply chain performance. What are the objectives of PrimeLink? To expand our procurement and logistics services into 3 additional African markets within 5 years. Then to achieve at least 95% of customer satisfaction within the next 3 years. And to reduce average procurement and delivery lead times by 20% within 3 years. So we have been able to identify example of our company. We have looked at our company. Then we have also seen our vision, and we have also seen our mission and objectives. Now, these should be able to tell us where we want to go. Now, the second step to coming up with a good strategic decision is to understand your current position. Now, before we get to know where I want to go, we need to appreciate and understand our position in detail. Now, that means we have to examine our internal capabilities. Internal capabilities, and also external environment for us to be able to understand exactly our position. Are we at a good advantage, or are we at a disadvantage? Now we can use many tools to help us identify our current position. For example, we have what we call the SWOT analysis, which can actually help you come up with internal strengths. SWOT in full is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So SWOT analysis has helped many businesses to be able to identify their current position. Now, how is this going to apply here? Now, SWOT analysis will help PrimeLink identify some of its strengths. For example, what are we good at? For example, PrimeLink will be having experienced procurement professional. That is the strength of PrimeLink. Then we have strong supplier network. We have good supply network management. Then that's another strength could be strong customer relationships. What about the weaknesses? What are we limited at? For example, we have a small logistics fleet. We have limited brand recognition internationally, and dependence on a few major clients. Limited financial resources for rapid expansion. I want you to take note on these limitations, because this is where it will help us to know what strategies to come up with. Okay. For example, we have limited brand recognition internationally. However, remember what we had discussed earlier on our mission and vision. We said to become a leading procurement and logistics solution provider in Africa. But now we have a challenge of we have limited brand recognition internationally. So this is something that will help us know what is our situation and also help us to come up with good strategies. Now, the SWOT analysis also offers opportunities. It helps us to see what can we take advantage of. For example, there is growing demand for outsourced procurement services. Many organizations right now actually need outsourced procurement services so that they can remain independent of the procurement process. Growth of African regional trade, COMESA, for example, COMESA, East African Trade Unions and the like, that is encourage free movement of goods and services. Increasing demand for supply chain visibility and organizations looking for cost reduction and supply chain efficiency. So what are some of the threats? Now, under the SWOT analysis, you also have threats. What could affect us? Okay. Look at the strong competition from international procurement companies. You're not going to be doing this alone. Okay. Now, these threats can also help you come up with the appropriate strategies on how to reduce these threats. Currency fluctuations. What will be the strategies? Political and regulatory changes in different countries. Supply chain disruptions and also raising transport costs. So the SWOT analysis helps us to identify where we are now. What is our current situation? Now this will help us also to come up with or formulate the necessary strategies we need. You can also use what we call the PESTLE or PEST-led, depending on what you want, to help us also identify where we are. For example, PrimeLink, it helps especially in scanning the environment, PESTLE tool. For example, the social aspect, the population, PrimeLink will look at the population, the culture, the lifestyle, and demographics. For example, the age, the lifestyle, do people want luxurious items or people are into cost savings? The culture, what is the culture like? And consumer behaviors. Now, this will help PrimeLink to come up with better strategies on how to solve some of these challenges or maximize some of these opportunities within the social aspect. How about the technology? Technology, we are talking about emerging technology, for example, the use of AI, the automation, digital systems, innovations. How is Primelink going to make use of these technologies to advance its vision and mission? E, for the economic factors, for example, inflation, interest rates, exchange rates. Is Primelink operating, or are you operating in an area that has high interest rates or has high exchange rates? Now, this all will help you know where your business actually operates, and it helps you come up with the different strategies that you need to employ. So the same applies to environmental aspect, climate change, population, sustainability, and environmental regulations. There are regulations that can be set by the government, can be set by international bodies, and this can affect your transactions globally. So you have to know what are some of these regulations in terms of environment, so that you can be able to come up with strategies so that you're not caught off guard and you continue to operate and actually are resilient to the changes. Then the same applies to political, which is government policies, political stability, taxes, and trade policies. The legal laws, regulations, and compliances also has to be looked at. Ethical business ethics. Ethically, you're going to look at the business ethics, corruption, free trade, and labor practices. So these tools should be able to help you to know where you are as a business. So after you have identified where you are, that is the second stage. Now let's go to the third stage. Choose a strategy. So at this stage, you're going to develop and select strategies that can take the organization from its current position to where it wants to be. So the key question is, how are we going to get there? For example, Primelink, if we want a strategy of market expansion as our strategy, so we can decide to expand procurement and logistics services in 2 new African markets. You see, so that is now the strategy, because we want to, remember our vision, we want to be among the leading service provider of procurement and logistics services in Africa. So we decide to expand. The strategy will be to expand its procurement and logistics services into new African markets. So why the SWOT strategy is very important? It has helped us to identify that we have a strong procurement expertise. From the analysis, we have also been able to identify that we have a good supplier network, and there is a strong demand in other countries. However, our geographical presence is limited. That's why we need to expand. So that is how the SWOT strategy has helped us to come up with a good strategy. Now, after we have identified the strategy that we have desired, we have to communicate the strategy. Make sure that people across the organization understand the direction and their roles in achieving it. So does everyone understand what we are trying to achieve? If no, provide capacity building. Okay? Make sure that they are trained on what they need to do, their roles and responsibilities. And you can even integrate some of these strategies into the organization's policies and procedures, so that people can come to know and actually come to familiarize themselves with some of these strategies. So you can also come up with key performance indicators. This will show how the organization will be able to move the progresses and the milestones. So once stakeholders have been brought to board, stakeholders can mean those internal and also externally, the ones you're collaborating with, the suppliers. then you can be able to effectively implement the strategy. Which now takes us to number 5, implement the strategy. We are going to move from just communication to now applying our strategy and putting it into action. Now, implementation involves many things, but among others, committing resources and coordinating and executing of these activities. And the key question would be, are we actually doing what we planned? Now, for example, it would require maybe you need to recruit more staff. If necessary, you may need to commit more resources in form of time, personnel, and also finances in order to enable the strategy to be implemented. So it is very important to see that actually a budget is put into place to see that this strategy can actually be implemented. Even if it involves putting champions, change agents, to see that this strategy is actually being implemented. Someone who is responsible to lead this strategy to actually be very good. So 6, the last stage is monitor and manage. Now, after we have come up with our strategy, we have put up someone who is responsible as a champion, monitor and manage. Try to see whether we are actually getting the expected results. And if there is an adjustment, let's make it. Let's try to see whether the resources we are injecting into the business are actually paying off. So the key question is the strategy working, and what needs to change? So this is our last stage on strategic formulation. Now, just an exam tip for you. Remember, if SIPS asks you to evaluate and assess strategic management, don't just list the 6 stages. You should briefly explain what each stage is about and how it affects the organization. Don't forget including examples like we have been doing. So that is the end of the first session in chapter 1, and thank you so much for joining. Our next session, we shall discuss more on the characteristics of a strategy or the dimensions of the strategy. So be ready to follow. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.